Welcome to Freeze It February, sponsored by Lynn over at the Bucket List Homestead. The girls and I are going to share a kid-friendly way to solve your pizza cravings with a delicious sourdough calzone. If you're new here, welcome, and if not, welcome back. This recipe will start out in the pantry by putting together a simple sourdough pizza crust. I will link this in the description below, but it is from the King Arthur website, and it also uses sourdough discard. Now, I think this is a really awesome recipe to make right before you're ready to feed when you have a lot of discard available, but if not, you can use active discard, or as an alternative, if you're not into sourdough, I will link my favorite King Arthur pizza crust recipe down below that has nothing to do with sourdough for those of you who don't want to make that leap. Any pizza recipe that you have and already love will work just fine for this, but the one that I am making calls for 227 grams of starter, or approximately 1 cup, a half cup plus a little more of lukewarm water. That can range anywhere from 141 to 170 grams, just depending on the hydration of your dough that day. 2.5 cups of flour. Now, I'm using a freshly ground flour, but I have used just general all-purpose before as well. So whatever you have on hand there will work. It comes out to 300 grams is what they're looking for in this recipe. 1 teaspoon of salt, a half teaspoon of yeast, and then I usually do a good palmful of the Italian seasoning. You can use a pizza dough seasoning if you have one, but I find just a great Italian works well without having to purchase an additional. Once your dough is well mixed, go ahead and set it aside and put a lid on it or wrap it up and get it in a nice warm spot until it comes to at least double in size. At that point, you know you're ready to move on to the next steps. Now, I will give you a little of behind the scenes here. We had a malfunction with the camera the first go around, so I actually ended up making a second batch of dough. So what you will see me working with during this process is actually a doubling of the recipe that I just gave you previously. I have successfully scaled this one up and down every way possible, and it always turns out really good. So if you're ever in an excess of discard, just know that this one is a really good one to have around. Now, with this much dough, you have a couple options. You can obviously bake 2 pizza crusts instantly, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to put something in your freezer. Oftentimes, I will make a lot of dough just like this, wrap up those crusts individually in servings, and put them in the freezer just like this. You can also go ahead and put your toppings in there in a Ziploc. So if you're a pepperoni lover or you want to make it a supreme and go all out with all of the toppings, you can bag those up and freeze them along with your crust so you have a ready to go pizza kit. But today we're taking it one step further and we are making my kiddos' favorite mini calzones. Now, you can make these larger if you like. I just like them little for little hands. So whatever's going to work for you and your family, you know it best, is exactly what you need to do. So for us, we are weighing these out to 2-ounce portions. The weighing is obviously not an absolute necessity. You can easily just eyeball it. But since I wanted all of these to smooth out to similar sizing during our portioning, I wanted to make sure that we had a uniform size. Now, of course, if you've been around my channel for long, you know that the kids always jump up and are ready to get involved. So when the girls saw me working with dough, they flocked to the kitchen. Now, disregard all of the stickers all over this little lady. The kids love stickers and like to play with them. You never know where you're going to find them. And today they're in her hair and on her back, which I'm not noticing until now somehow. So regardless of that, she's taken her turn cutting out the dough. And baby sister back there in the back cannot help but get her hands in the mix too. Now, after we get these all finished, it is time to get them pressed out. And I want to show you exactly what that looks like. We are actually using a tortilla press to accomplish this. This was a just stroke of genius in my mind to save me a whole bunch of time the first time we tried to make this recipe. The directions that I was getting off the internet said to roll these out, but that was taking a little bit of time with the first one, and I realized I have this cast iron tortilla press, and it doesn't do a super awesome job getting tortillas as thin as I need them, but it does a fantastic job of pressing out these circles for our calzones. So when I make tortillas with this, I get them to this space that you're seeing right now, or this size, and then I roll them out a little more because the circles are already done and they're pressed really thin. But at this point, the calzones turn out perfect with just the addition of the press. Now, you are seeing some circle parchment paper. I bought these purposefully to use with this press, but they come in super handy with the calzones because we just peel off the top piece and leave them resting on the bottom, which allows us to easily move them around without stretching any extra or getting all sticky. The other thing that you'll see with this later is it makes it super easy to portion them off and to put them in the Ziplocs without, again, getting them all mashed together when they're in the bags, and it keeps the process a whole lot cleaner. As you can see, we are putting the sister assembly line into full speed today to get these calzones all prepped and ready. Each one of the girls has a really different taste in what they actually want to put inside, so this worked out super well. We came out with 24 of our circles out of the 2-crust recipe, and then we went ahead and pulled out all sorts of different toppings that the kids could go ahead and put in the calzones. One of the hardest parts of this process is to make sure that you do not overfill the calzones. Now, when they are this small, that becomes a little extra difficult, but it really is still quite doable. My goal here was to put down some sauce on half of the calzone itself so that the girls would have a little bit of a placement idea for when they went ahead and put their toppings down. Now, as you can see, baby sister here had other ideas. She smeared that sauce all over, which will make it a little more difficult in the end. But check her out here. She threw that in the sink, which is right down there below you, which is a great idea. She didn't want to set it down and get messy, but this was our first round, and we have 2 more rounds to go. So I did have to pull that back out and go ahead and wash it before we used it again. But I thought that was super funny. She was just really worried about where she was going to put that without making a mess. So the real trick for us was to make sure that more toppings went in the calzones than in their mouths, which is always a little extra challenging with little ones around, but I think we're doing a pretty good job. Here I'm putting down the sausage. We have somebody in the back there putting down the pepperoni, the sauce went on, and then cheese coming in. So these are kind of like a meat lovers version. But again, toppings are really a personal preference, and the sky is the limit. Now, one of the sisters here does not like pizza at all. So she doesn't want anything to do with pizza on her pizza, in her own opinion, except for the cheese. Traditionally, when we make a pizza over on our Friday night pizza night, she gets a cheese stick, which is the same exact thing as a pizza. We just put melted butter and garlic and feta and cheese mozzarella shreds on top and melt that down for her instead of pizza sauce. But I did convince her that she would need a little bit of sauce in this. So we are going to go and do another round with a tiny bit of sauce and her feta and her mozzarella. And so those are some of the versions that we also have here. Additionally, I love to make a pesto chicken, but another favorite would be apple pie filling. So the sky is really the limit as far as creativity goes and options with this one. Now, what we decided to do was stack these up on individual cooling racks, so each layer is a different flavor, and I did make sure to make a mental note of that, so I made sure to bag them up in the right order, because that would be total chaos if somebody got the wrong one. Speaking of chaos, kids in the kitchen with all of this cheese and all of these toppings is absolute chaos. But they have fun and they love it, and I love having them with me. So I just get up the broom and clean it right up. At this point, the hard work is actually done. Now, you could let these go ahead and sit out for a while and rise until they're a little bit more puffy if you wanted a more bready type consistency, but these really still bake up quite beautifully even from frozen, just put into the freezer bags at this point. So that's really an option, again, for you, just depending on the limitations of your day and what you have going on. One thing I do make sure to do, in addition to labeling the exact flavor that's going in the bag, is I like to make sure to put the temperature and the time at which they need to be baked. So anybody grabbing this bag will know exactly what to do without having to ask me, number one, or two, go ahead and get my recipe. The temperature and time that you saw listed was for my oven. When I run them in the air fryer, I go quite a bit shorter. I would go around 12 or 15 minutes, but you're really just looking for a nice golden brown. And for the crust to be done on top, I do make sure that I go ahead and coat them with butter afterwards and sprinkle with garlic, also dipping them in marinara, and it makes an absolutely amazing bite. With that said, I would love for anyone and everyone to drop me their favorite pizza crust below. To win a Freeze It February drawing, you do have to comment on every single video, so make sure to check out the playlist that'll be in the description. Go back and watch all of the other contributors. We really appreciate each and every one of you, and if you are new here, please make sure to like and subscribe to this page if you want to see more antics around our kitchen with my kiddos, as well as everything else homemade, homegrown, and homeschooled. Thanks for stopping by, friends, and I really hope I see you back soon.